live on Zoom. And that should be coming right on up. All right, then. You're my self. All right, Susan Michelle, this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I'm here in Western Massachusetts. It is great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy from Suicide to Serenity, based on the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which I have been studying now for 33 years. And when I can live the principles that I know are true, I feel at peace. However, since I am not yet enlightened, I continue to vacillate. And it is so interesting when I block the truth of who I am. There is a lot of angst that I guess comes up when I'm in my ego. So I've been listening to a lot of Course in Miracles on Audible, and I've been listening to a lot of Alan Cohen lately. I go through spurts, but I've been listening to a lot of him on YouTube. And he is the author of A Course in Miracles Made Easy. And he said the same thing as I say. He says, when I adhere to the truth of who I am, I feel the peace, love, and joy of God. I don't know if those are his exact words, but he feels good. But it's still a challenge. I think it's a challenge for all of us that are here in this earthly classroom. So, anyway, my book, Surrender to Joy, in my introduction, my first paragraph reads, "My passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation." When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. And I think surrendering to a power that is greater than us, but that we are a part of, is so empowering. When I can really step into that mindset, my life starts to flow. This morning, I started my day with the daily Course in Miracles lesson. And the lesson for today is lesson 314. We're getting towards the end. We have another less than 2 months to go. So we're getting close to the end of the workbook. And today's lesson is, I seek a future different from the past. And there is no past. There is no future. The only time that we can feel God is in the eternal present, the eternal now. And it is a discipline. It's a daily discipline to stay fully present in the moment, because there is nothing externally that is going to satisfy us. I was listening to another Course in Miracles teacher this morning speak about the law of attraction. And it's interesting because when you do focus on what you want to create in the world and you focus on it enough, you do end up creating it. However, attaining something from the world can never satisfy our soul's deeper yearning. I mean, the world teaches us that it can, but it cannot. It cannot for many reasons because there is no world. The world is nothing more than an external reflection of an internal condition. And again, as I listened to this messaging this morning, this particular Course in Miracles teacher spoke about how, everything has a frequency. So if it's a new car that you want and you're connecting to the feelings of having that car, then you're actually going to attract the car to you because what we experience in the world is reflecting back to us what we believe we are on an inner level. So, but again, the car is not the thing that makes us happy. Getting anything from the world is not going to make us happy. But again, everyone has a certain vibratory frequency. So it is very important to watch your thoughts. There's so much that goes into the law of attraction. My big story in my book about the law of attraction was when I was single. I had a mad wild crush on this gentleman from South Africa, and I knew how the law of attraction worked. I also was a Course in Miracles student at the time. And every morning, as I went into my morning meditation, I would visualize myself with this man from South Africa having a wonderful romance. I met him in New York City. He went back to South Africa. I lived actually right by the Empire State Building in New York City. And we had a brief fling, I guess you could call it. I went on a few dates with him while he was visiting Manhattan. Then he left to go back to South Africa. But according to my mind, this was my soulmate. At the time, I guess I was in my 30s. Everyone that I met, I wanted them to be my soulmate. I wanted to get married and have children. So every morning I woke up and I visualized myself having a romance with this particular gentleman. Glenn, his name was. He was in South Africa. I was in New York City. I proceeded to book a ticket to South Africa to go to see him. I paid for the ticket. He seemed happy to have me come to visit him. All my friends and family told me, no, stay away. He's a player. He doesn't want anything to do with you. But I was so sure. I'm kind of like this when I feel like something's right for me, I go for it, no matter what anyone else says. And I did my morning meditation, my creative visualization every single morning, and I was really connected to that romantic feeling. I was really connected to the power of love. I was just embracing romance and passion and love. So my energy did uplift itself, during the meditation when we can really tap into that energy. You can see you can feel your energy uplift itself. What I did wrong was I was focusing on the form of Glenn as to the source of my satisfaction. It wasn't him that could bring peace, love, joy, and happiness. That's what A Course in Miracles calls a special relationship. It wasn't him. It was just that energy of expansive love that I think I really was craving. So on one hand, I was doing a good thing by connecting to those feelings of peace, love, joy, and happiness. But again, where I went wrong is I was focused on the form. So instead of recognizing that God is the source of my happiness, God is this expansive force of unconditional love, I was feeling those feelings, but placing my joy in the form of Glenn. So after about 3 months of visualizing this hot and heavy romance, in the terrain of South Africa, this country which I visualized to be very beautiful, and it was once I got there. I took the 18-hour plane ride over to South Africa, and Glenn, unfortunately, was not even at the airport to greet me. He sent his friends to pick me up at the airport. And then, as the trip continued to play itself out, this gentleman that I thought I was in love with decided he didn't even want to see me. And I was mystified. Like, how could I have been so focused on having a romance with Glenn, and I thought God was guiding me to take a trip to see my future soulmate in South Africa, and then once I get there, he doesn't even want to see me. So I got really, really angry at God, just really angry. I didn't know who else to get angry at. I mean, I was angry at Glenn also, but really what it boiled down to was me being angry at God, because I thought I was listening to him. I thought he was guiding me to South Africa. I thought I was doing everything according to the plan. And after I threw a temper tantrum, I remember throwing a temper tantrum. I was just so irate that God was leading me on this wild goose chase. I guess I got to a place where I surrendered. I forgave myself. I forgave God. I said, okay, I'm here in South Africa. South Africa has something for me to find here, something for me to experience here. I'm just gonna let everything be exactly as it is. And it was interesting how that worked, because once I surrendered to the moment, then what proceeded to happen is my friends from South Africa invited me to a party. And at first, I didn't want to go because I was feeling grumpy. But then I decided I'm here, I might as well go. And then I went to this party, and that's where I met South African soulmate number two. It was really interesting how that worked. And as the vacation played itself out, I spent all my time with South African soulmate number two. His name was Herman. I think if you say that in English, it's Herman, which doesn't sound very sexy. But if you say it in with the South African tinge to it, the South African accent, you trill the R, so it's pronounced Herman. And he was tall and handsome, and he had this incredibly cute South African accent. He was actually Afrikaans is what they call it. In South Africa, there's two types. There's either English or Afrikaans. My first infatuation was English. My second infatuation was Afrikaans. So we had a really great time together. I spent all my time with him, and everything that I visualized in my 3 month creative visualization practice ended up manifesting itself. Um, I ended up staying another week. I extended my time there. So instead of staying for 2 weeks, I stayed for 3 weeks. So I was focused on romance. I was focused on love. I was focused on just enjoying life to the fullest. And it all manifested like better than I imagined it. And it was the most amazing trip of my life. But then that same mistake repeated itself. I flew back to New York City, and I was again fixated on form for my peace, love, joy, and happiness. This probably happens to a lot of people. I was fixated on his form. And I continued to call him. I don't think he really called me all that much. And finally, what happened is he found a new girlfriend because I wasn't there anymore. And he obviously wasn't as much into the romance as I was, and I fell to pieces. So I guess the point of my fable is when it comes to the law of attraction does work. Like we can focus on what we want to create in the world. There's so many books about attaining things of the world. And when you focus intently on what you want to create, you actually kind of vibrate to a certain frequency and you attract what you want to create to you. But what's important to remember, getting what we want can never, ever make us happy. The only thing that can satisfy our soul is staying plugged into our God socket, being connected to our creator. There was a article in People magazine a few days ago, which is the perfect example of this thought. It was the man on Friends who ended up dying. Oh golly, can't even remember his name right now. The man on Friends. He was a big kind of he wrote a big self-help book. And I know it sold really well because I remember my sister told me all about it. And he had a problem with substance, which was a constant, I guess, challenge in his life. And that's what he wrote about. But in terms of the world, I think he had $120 million. Oh, Matthew Perry. Thank you, Lynn. Lynn also always saves me when I can't think of it. Yeah, Matthew Perry. Thank you very much. He had $120 million. He was, in his, I think he was 54 years old. Um, he had a lot of success in his life, and he was handsome. I believe he was pretty healthy, except for the drugs. But it just wasn't satisfying to him because he never conquered those inner demons. And we hear about this all the time when somebody appears to have everything externally, but they focus on the world for satisfaction. That's why to have a spiritual practice can be the most supportive thing that we can do for ourselves. I know I was talking to my running partner this morning, and she's not a Course in Miracles. She's a born again Christian, but she says the same thing that I do, she said to me, like at the end of our run, she said life is extremely challenging. And if we place our faith in the world, it's so easy to get disappointed. But when we place our faith in God, then everything works itself out. It always does. So no matter what your religious or spiritual beliefs are, I mean, I think to focus on God as you understand him is the only place, the only way to find peace, love, joy, and happiness. And to go back to today's lesson is number 314. And what it says, I seek a future different from the past. And then Jesus goes on to write, from new perception of the world, there comes a future very different from the past. The future now is recognized as but extension of the present. Past mistakes can cast no shadows on it, so that fear has lost its idols and its images, and being formless, it has no effects. Death will not claim the future now, for life is now its goal, and all the needed means are happily provided. Who can grieve or suffer when the present has been freed, extending its security and peace into a quiet future filled with joy? And then there's a little prayer. It says, Father, we were mistaken in the past and choose to use the present to be free. Now do we leave the future in your hands, leaving behind our past mistakes, and sure that you will keep your present promises and guide the future in their holy light. So if we can really trust that we are always safe, we are always loved, we are always cared for, if we can really live in that place, of course, the future is going to be perfect. It's a matter of releasing the fear. It's a matter of doing our best to accept everything in our life exactly as it is. I mean, another subject that came up at the end of my run this morning was a challenge that my running partner was experiencing in her life. She hasn't seen her son in quite some time, and it's very challenging for her to be away from him. And I guess when you look at that from one perspective, you could see it as sad. But if you look at it from another perspective, maybe everything is just perfect. Maybe she's learning what she needs to learn being away from him. He's learning what he needs to learn being away from her. And when they do come together again in the near future, which I believe they will, it's all going to be perfect. I mean, I was thinking of that serenity prayer as well, and how important it is to just accept everything exactly as it is, to be fully present in the moment, when we're faced with challenges in life, the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity, grant me the wisdom to accept the things I cannot change, give me the courage to change the things I can, and give me the wisdom. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There you have it, And sometimes I say that to myself as well, because just to realize that everything is exactly perfect right here, right now. I mean, A Course in Miracles tells us over and over again that the three fastest ways to heaven, and all heaven is a state of mind when we are connected to our divinity. The three fastest ways to connect to God is forgiveness. Well, I say acceptance, forgiveness, and gratitude. Accepting everything in our life exactly as it is. Um, Forgiving everyone in our life, because whenever we forgive someone else, who we're really forgiving is ourselves, because God has but one son and we're all part of that sonship. And gratitude, just really being grateful for everything that we have, because how I see gratitude too is, yeah, I used to be a big sister in a program in New York City. And I remember I had two little sisters. One of them, every time I gave her even the littlest thing, she was so grateful, and she just loved it so much. And I felt so good giving her things, and I just wanted to give her more and more and more, because I loved the fact that she was so gracious for my gifts. And the other little sister, no matter what I gave her, it was never good enough. So if I gave her a piece of candy, she wanted three. Well, why didn't you give me three? I didn't want just one piece of candy. When I gave her, no matter what I gave her, it was never good enough. So I got a lot of enjoyment from giving to the little girl who was grateful for my gifts, and I felt very frustrated giving to the girl that I could never please. So, not that God needs our gratitude, but I think when we're grateful for things, it just kind of allows more abundance to come into our life. So that's why a lot of people talk about a gratitude practice. And when I can focus on what I am grateful for, I do feel like I am opening myself up to the flow of life, and I start to experience more joy. Even the little things, when I'm running and I pass an animal. I've been seeing a lot of deers lately. When I'm running and I pass a deer and I notice how beautiful they are, and I kind of see that as a sign too, that I am uh, in the right place at the right time. My angels are with me. I always see deers as a sign, because they're so beautiful and they're so docile and they're so kind. But when I'm grateful for my life, I find that my life starts to flow to a greater extent. So on that note, it is just about 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. And what Course in Miracles says is nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is the only thing that's real is the love. Thank God for that. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan Michelle. Beautiful sharing, and I always appreciate you so much.